In 1960, a wave of optimism swept across the Congo as it celebrated its independence from Belgium. But this new dawn wouldn't last. Almost immediately, the new nation plunged into chaos, a storm of mutiny, political assassination, and a brutal civil war. At the eye of that storm was its wealthiest province, a land overflowing with copper, cobalt, and uranium. This is the story of how that province made a bid for its own freedom, and how the power struggles that followed doomed it from the start. On July 11, 1960, just 11 days after Congolese independence, the confident leader of Katanga province, Moise Tshombe, made a stunning announcement. He accused the central government of sliding into a communist dictatorship and declared that Katanga was now an independent, sovereign nation. Backed by incredible mineral wealth and powerful foreign allies, the state of Katanga was born. It was a nation that existed for a fleeting, violent moment, country created from chaos, and ultimately destroyed by the very riches that were supposed to be its greatest prize. The dream of an independent Congo was decades in the making, but the reality was a nightmare. The handover from Belgium was so abrupt it left the new nation with weak institutions and leaders who had virtually no experience. This wasn't an accident. The Belgians had long used a divide and rule strategy, treating Katanga almost as a separate colony and encouraging regional identities over national unity. Why? Because Katanga was the economic engine of the Congo, generating half of the government's entire budget and home to nearly 75% of its mining production. The real power here wasn't in the capital. 'Twas with the giant Belgian mining company, the Union du Haut Katanga. For years, this company had funded Tshombe's political party, making sure they had a friendly politician protecting their massive profits. Just days after the independence parties ended, the army mutinied against its Belgian officers, and the country spiraled into disorder. It was the perfect excuse. Citing the breakdown of law and order, Tshombe seized his moment. With the support of Belgian troops and quiet financial backing from the Union, the richest province in Africa was suddenly its own country. The secession immediately created a bitter standoff. In the nation's capital, the Congo's first democratically elected Prime Minister, Patrice Lumumba, a fierce nationalist, saw Katanga's breakaway for what it was: an act of economic strangulation that would kill his new country before it could even learn to walk. He furiously denounced the move as a Belgian-backed plot and appealed to the United Nations for help. Suddenly, the world was watching. The Congo crisis quickly became a new front in the Cold War. Lumumba's desperate pleas for help eventually led him to accept Soviet support, which immediately set off alarm bells in Washington. The U.S. and other Western powers, terrified of a Soviet foothold in Africa, found Tshombe's pro-Western, anti-communist stance much more appealing. While countries like Belgium, France, and the UK never officially recognized Katanga, they quietly helped, even allowing mercenaries to be recruited to build Tshombe's army. But Tshombe's control wasn't total. Inside Katanga itself, a brutal conflict was raging. The Baluba people in the north of the province fiercely opposed the secession, leading to violent ethnic clashes and massacres by Tshombe's forces. The dream of a prosperous, peaceful Katanga was already being shattered by its own internal power struggles. The crisis reached its boiling point with the fate of Patrice Lumumba. After being overthrown in a coup led by Army Chief Joseph Mobutu, Lumumba was captured. In a fateful decision, he was flown to Katanga and handed over to his mortal enemy, Moise Tshombe. There, in January 1961, Lumumba was tortured and executed by a firing squad, an act supervised by both Katangan and Belgian officers. His death sent shockwaves across the globe and hardened international opinion against the secession. The UN, which had been hesitant to intervene in what it saw as an internal affair, passed a new resolution authorizing the use of force to prevent civil war. This was aimed directly at Katanga. Over the next 2 years, UN peacekeepers from nations like India, Ireland, and Sweden clashed with Tshombe's mercenaries. The final blow came in late 1962 with Operation Grand Slam, a decisive UN military offensive that completely overwhelmed the Katangese army. By January 1963, Chaume surrendered. The state of Katanga was over. The story of the Congo crisis and Katanga secession is a complex web of decolonization, greed, and Cold War politics. If you want to understand more of the pivotal moments that have shaped our world, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more historical documentaries. The fall of Katanga didn't bring peace. The power vacuum was filled by Joseph Mobutu, who seized total power in 1965 and would rule the Congo as a brutal dictator for more than 30 years. The province was brought back into the fold, but the legacy of division, violence, and foreign exploitation would haunt the nation for generations. The story of Katanga is a stark reminder of how the dream of independence can be tragically crushed by the immense weight of natural resources, the ghosts of colonial rule, and the cold calculations of global powers.